Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. The Wow. Okay. I really only knew this one by reputation, but whew. So this one's a little bit different in terms of how I came by it. Normally, the folks over on Patreon vote on which classic Who story I will be tackling, but I actually received a number of commissions for specific classic Who stories to basically bump up to the top of the list, this being the first of what will be several. And along with that commission, I also want to point out that this review and the ones upcoming, which I'll note at the time, are dedicated to the memory of Timothy Sheridan, who was involved with the An Unearthly podcast, Doctor Who podcast. And he unfortunately passed away in July, and this has been commissioned in his memory. Apparently, it's believed that it will honor him to make me suffer. But, I mean, we'll see if that's the case with all of these. But for the first one that I ended up doing, Timelash. Whew, okay, so this is a Sixth Doctor story, and look, Sixth Doctor I have come to appreciate as a character thanks to Big Finish, but I have yet to find a Sixth Doctor story actually done on the show that didn't make me go, oh god, for various reasons. Partly it's the character himself is too harsh, like there's... The Doctor can be prickly, but there needs to be that underlying sense of like, oh, but it's okay. And he doesn't really have that a lot of the time. A lot of that has to do with his interactions with Perry, which, oh boy, I will come back to that. And then there's the production value of the time, because Doctor Who was not being well funded at this point, and it shows. I think part of the problem is that I feel like the writers and the people, behind the story weren't accounting for the fact that they had no money, because the scope and the ambition of this and some of the things they try to depict, my first thought is, if you knew you couldn't afford to do that well, why did you write it in? Now, there's some times where I get that and I wave the thought off, like John Pertwee's era, that comes up a lot, especially with the excessive use of the blue screen effect, because at the very least that was new stuff for them. That was stuff they were experimenting with. Maybe they didn't fully know the limitations. I can make some excuses for that. I can't excuse this. Like, you should have a sense of what your budget is and what you can and you can't afford to do, and you can't afford to pull this off. And there's even more to it than that. In addition to a wonky script in some very odd areas, some of the performances are fine. Some of them are like, oh wow, is that an actor or a mannequin? And then there's the visual presentation of that whole thing. Okay, where do we start? So this is one of those ones that has the Doctor and Perry basically stumbling onto a story. It's a fairly standard opening setup for a classic Doctor Who story. And the place where they are, it's undergone... Okay, so here's one of the interesting things that the story does. It builds a fair amount of retroactive continuity for the Doctor, which I don't think was something that Classic Who did very often. I haven't encountered it outside the story. It's probably happened somewhere. Well, it's happened in much smaller ways, like when they had the Doctor run into like an old classmate of his. But that was obviously something that happened way before events in the show even would have started. Here, we get allusions and very direct references to the fact that not only has the Doctor been to this planet before, we know which specific Doctor was here before. It was the third Doctor traveling with Jo Grant. And that is not a story that actually was ever filmed, but they treat it as if the Doctor says, oh yes, I've been here, some things have changed. And there's like, the Doctor is a little bit of a legend on this place, which I know I complain about that in Modern Era, but it's the first time I'm encountering it in Classic, so I'll give it a little bit of a pass there. But the specific references for who exactly it was who came, I kind of like that. I like that that is built into there, and these allusions and implications and little drops of information for a story and an adventure that we never saw. I like that because it builds on the thing that I always choose to believe about the Doctor, which is there is a lot more that the Doctor goes through than we ever see. And I like hints at what some of those things are. That's about the only thing I'm going to praise here, so enjoy that. Perry, let's deal with Perry. Perry serves no purpose. All Perry does is get damseled repeatedly. That's all that happens. And even that seems to have very little direct impact on the plot and what's going on. She's captured with the use that the villain has for her. Honestly, it didn't have to be her. It could have been anybody. It really did seem like they slotted her in specifically because they had nothing else for her to do. I feel really bad for the actress because she just never gets to have a personality. She's just always in panic mode, which is part of the problem with her relationship with the doctor. I feel like the instant she relaxes, it's like, but then the doctor snaps at her and she's like, and again, I'm not getting the vibes as harshly as I did in Attack of the Cybermen, but I'll tell you, the abusive relationship vibes, top to bottom, she is so scared of him, I can't not see it as that. So, it's not just the portrayal of the Sixth Doctor in general, it's how she reacts to him. I don't think I am ever gonna like the Sixth Doctor, definitely not in the season where he's paired with Perry, because she's so scared of him. She is so, deathly afraid of him, and that really makes me not like him. And it's not even like in an intriguing way, like Dawn is like, oh, you scare me to death. Like, no, she recoils like he's about to hit her. Which is fair, because he friggin' strangled her first thing. Okay, that's other stories. Anyways. So Perry has no point, and really has nothing to do. As far as the wooden acting, there's, so there's wooden acting and there's inconsistent acting. There's one of the villainous characters, Trekker, something like that, who's kind of the latest person to take on this figurehead of authority role. He's kind of over the top and chewing the scenery, but like in a way that I'm enjoying. It feels like he's the only one who realizes the production value of when he's in, and he's just gonna own it. Like, this scenery is crap, and I'm gonna chew the heck out of it. Honestly, respect. I kind of dug him. There's the Borad, who's the power behind the throne, basically, in this society that we're dealing with, and I actually kind of like the makeup job that they did. They did a pretty good job of lighting him and shooting him at angles where it blends pretty well. Is it very obviously a mask? Yes, but the droopy, uneven thing, I actually think it kind of works. It kind of looks all right. And even when he talks, it doesn't look that bad. And they were pretty sparse about shooting it. They seem to understand the limitations of it and were accommodating for it way more than some of the other effects. But we'll get to effects. We're still on performances. So, the Borad as a performance more or less worked for me as well. But then we've got other things. First of all, we've got the androids. Okay, first time I saw the androids, I burst out laughing repeatedly watching this thing. Just going, oh God. I kind of wish I'd filmed myself watching it, if I'm going to be completely honest. But anyway, so what we've got going on here is they're just painted blue in these big, this part of the production I'll get. The costumes are crap. They're just these bulky, kind of dirty robes. That's everybody's in, including the androids. And the androids talk like this. And it doesn't even have a digital effect laid over it. It's just a person talking like this. Oh man, yeah, that's bad. Although the absolute epitome of what the heck performances, Vina, who is a fairly pivotal character among the natives here. She's kind of like the last person standing, ready to lead a resistance, and she is so flat and so unengaged and so wooden. I didn't detect a single emotion behind her eyes in any line reading that she gave. Wow. It has been a while since I have seen her. I can go with a miscalculated performance, a misfired performance. She doesn't give a performance. It's like they just found somebody. It's like the actor didn't show up. They just found somebody who fit the costume and said, here, read these lines. But I don't know how to just read the lines. And they just read them flat. That's what her performance comes across like. And I don't mean to denigrate this actress. Maybe she had bad direction. Maybe she's good in other things. I don't know. But in this, whoa. Oh, that's bad. Okay, and then there's another weird addition. So this is coming into the writing a little bit because I don't want to make it seem like the production and the performances were what sunk an otherwise good script. No, script ain't good either. So there's a couple of things. First of all, we have a character who gets brought into the story in a very awkward fashion and is very random. A guy named Howard from the 1800s, so the 19th century, late 19th century, who basically gets roped in because Vina... so the time lash is basically a time tunnel, and it seems to just drop people in random places, which, I mean, that sucks, but I'm not sure why people are as terrified of it as they are, given that it's basically a dice roll, and maybe you'll end up somewhere where you're going to be okay. Anyways. So Vina ends up in basically his study because he's trying to summon spirits, and that's what he thinks he's done at first. And then when the doctor comes back and picks up Vina, Howard ends up sneaking on board the TARDIS. And basically Howard's entire arc is the doctor tells him not to do something, or more specifically, don't follow me, stay here. And then he just doesn't. Then he follows the doctor. He doesn't stay where he was told to stay. And that's his entire thing. He does not actually contribute to the story in any meaningful way. And the only reason he's there is so that they can justify the fact that there are creatures underneath the main civilization that are called Morlocks. And I'm like, that's odd that they pulled something that well known, because that is from H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. Well, guess what? Howard is H.G. Wells. Oh my God. Why? And that's not the only bizarre, stupid implication of this thing, because the Borad is then implied to be the Loch Ness Monster, which Doctor Who has already accounted for the Loch Ness Monster at this point in the Zygon episode back in the Fourth Doctor's era. So now you're saying there was a fake Loch Ness Monster, but also a real Loch Ness Monster who was this guy just splashing around in the loch? Except, how does that work? Unless he's going to mutate further, he's just a weird-looking dude. He's not, like, the Morlocks were a bit more big creaturey, although they look like crap. Okay, let's get to the production on this. Okay. Oh boy, where do I even start? Okay, the number of sets that wobbled. I've noted wobbly sets every now and then, and sometimes it's really bad. But oftentimes you get the sense that somebody bumped into something they weren't supposed to. It wasn't built in a way that it was intended to be interacted with. An actor bumped it and it wobbled. And, they didn't have the time or the means to do a ton more takes just because of that. If the rest of the scene was fine, they just moved forward. They were on tight filming schedules for these things. That's fine, I can work with that. But things that are clearly designed to move and made for people to interact with were wobbling. There's this thing that lifts up and there's a panel and it's lifting up going... you could tell what things were made of. So much stuff was made out of cut foam and cardboard. It was insane. This guy's holding these things these amulets. It's a mirror. Yes. No, it's not. It's a piece of gray friggin' styrofoam. What do you mean it's a mirror? Talking about? Oh God. And then to give you an idea of what I'm talking about when I said, why did they write what they should have known they didn't have the means to execute? There's a point at which the doctor gets lowered into the time lash on a rope, and for some reason, despite every other little glimpse of it we've had has been this swirly coloring, not very good effects either, thing. Now it's like a crystal pit thing, and he's kind of getting lowered in. And the initial shots of it, I was like, that's actually kind of impressive. That's not half bad. But then the shot's getting closer. And you can see on these rods that are sticking out from the wall where the joins are, where the sections were taped and then painted over. It's so obvious. And there are shots where the camera's right there, and front and center in the shot is this painted over bit of taped supposedly crystalline thing, and I'm like, wow, that's the sort of thing where if a cosplayer made it, if they were 10, I would have gone, really nice job. But other than that, for professionals, and again, I'm sure they had no resources. So I'm going to come back to, why'd you write that? You should have known you could not have afforded to pull that off. I'm pretty sure that the production either just knew that they were never going to get it or had just given up by that point. Because like I said, Doctor Who had its budget really kicked to the dirt by this point. This thing, here's what I will say. I'm not going to tell people not to watch it. But watch it in the spirit in which it can be enjoyed. It's very rare for me to say that anything is so bad it's good. But on rare occasions, something can be bad in a way that I do find funny. And it doesn't really happen with Doctor Who either. Like, I think of a lot of the worst stories, like something like Warriors of the Deep. Oh, I wouldn't watch that again. That's not fun. It just hurts. This, for some reason, the specific ways in which it's inept and how many different ways it's inept really did actually entertain me. I got a real kick out of watching this, but man, it's not good. Oh, and there's puppets. Okay, God. So I mentioned the Morlocks are, more sort of traditionally monstery, but oh boy, it's just this long neck and it's, and I get multiple shots of it. Again, how did you not realize it looks this bad? But then there's these aliens that is just so clear. It's just a rod puppet where the mouth just goes, oh God, and it's so clearly made of foam because you can see it kind of shaking and jiggling almost every time the mouth opens. Oh, this thing's amazing. In the worst way, it's amazing. So it ain't good, but if you can ever appreciate, and for me, it's very rare. It is very rare. But if you can ever appreciate so inept, it's kind of incredible. Yeah, take the time and check out Timelash. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Usual stuff. There's the Patreon I mentioned before. I'll put a link up there. It keeps everything going and is what enables me to keep the lights on and pay the bills around here. Plus, links to other stuff below, my social media, merch, etc., etc., etc. No pressure, though, because, we take a relaxed attitude around here. So just come on back next time you need a break.